That's perfect. Well, that's cheap diesel. I ain't seen that in a while. Let's set up the community filters before we get into this story. 1 minute. I figure that's enough to filter out most of the people. All right. Greetings. I've been to a myriad of places in time, and every once in a while, something reminds me of a story. I was down in San Antonio. I've been to this place a number of times. Back when this company used to have iron skillets, there was a buffet they did. And there's something really weird about the weird, nomadic, chaotic life I've lived. In the sense that I should be offended by the smell of it. You know, like, what type of humanity is this? But when I was there, I was just like, humanity. Not all truck stops are like this. And it sounds nasty as fuck, and to some degree it is. But I want to tell you about San Antonio, the Petro, and basically just a little bit of that about that area. By the way, this is Freedom Phil. Like and subscribe. Let's get into it, and always turn up the video speed. Why do I say that? Because you're watching this video way faster, 150, 175. That's what you should be doing. Let's get into it. I've got many loads down there. There's I don't know what type of frozen cold storage place. It's down there in San Antonio off Prophet Drive. Sometimes I'll park over there if it gets too late. But if I have extra time before I have to park over there, and just, I don't know if you can still ghost, but park over there and ghost on Prophet Drive. Sometimes I'd actually take the time to take my 34-hour reset at that particular Petro. And why? Because they had a buffet. You know, and I could just walk, under the overpass over to the Pilot and grab a shower. And there's something about that part of Texas, much like many parts of Texas or the South. You see, it's not like Houston where it's just humid and, just Houston be Houston. No. It's kind of dry. And it's kind of like a stopping point if you're going down to Laredo, get unloaded there, then they blast you to Laredo to say pick up orange juice or something. But yeah, I'm sitting there, and I get out of the truck. And by the way, just as a song to listen to, Jim White, Turning Diamonds in the Coal. I was thinking of that when I was looking at the sunset out on the edge of the highway earlier. I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I'm like, yeah, you get out, and this place would have a funk to it. The smell of, like, people dumping way too many piss bottles. People just open up the passenger side truck window and be like, or if they're about to leave and the coffee, you see, it's fucking nasty at times. You're like, oh, well, I better move my truck a little forward so I'm not stepping in that. Worse off, there'd be the people that would take a crap behind the fucking trailers. I'm not showing you a beautiful picture of the trucking world. And there's that certain stink to it. Weirdly enough, much like if you lived in some sort of dirty city somewhere in the world, like the smell of New York, or back when Tacoma had an aroma because of all the paper mills. I mean, it still kind of has a smell to it, but not nearly as bad as back in the day. You kind of recognize that scent, and you're like, oh yeah, San Antonio. I got stuck there at one point. It was hot, muggy. And actually, there's a cow field in between. There's a Petro here on this side, and across the long ways of what used to be a cow field, oil field, there's a TA. And so there's this actual little road I found in this little, abandoned cow field. I found a homeless camp, like an abandoned one. You find these all the time if you're near the cities. Like maybe it was a seasonal homeless camp. Maybe the cops ran them off. Yeah, you find when you get down to the South, and you sometimes see this a little, sometimes north, but not so much because things get wet, the rot. And what will happen is that people will fucking get furniture and everything, and they'll drag it out there. You'll find like couches and shit, you know, abandoned tents, garbage piles, all sorts of things, man. And you look at it and you're like, surprisingly, I didn't. There were only a handful of needles around. You're like looking around, I'm like, but mind you, this is before fentanyl really got huge and heroin was still kind of passe. I'm just looking around, just kind of perusing this. And, you know, I get done waiting for the evening buffet, so I make my way back to my truck. I'm not sure if I had my corgi at that point. I might have. I think I did. I think it was a pup. But yeah, I go back. I'm taking a nap in the truck. And out of nowhere, the sky goes from being a beautiful blue to black in record time. And it just opens up. A truck stop is generally full of all sorts of smells and garbage, especially in the South, especially if it's paved. Somehow the earth, here's the thing. If you don't have a paved parking lot with a truck stop, you have constant fucking craters unless that person's really on it. So you'd rather have pavement, but the pavement ends up smelling like dumped coffee, piss, garbage, and everything else. And of course, there's a fleet of like different types of birds all descending on all of this mess. And these black clouds keep on just congregating. And then the sky just fucking opens up. I don't know how many of you have ever seen desert rain. It's a different experience than normal rain. Desert rain, when it comes, it pours. And I mean pour, like it feels like a bucket. God took a bucket and just dumped it. And sometimes it causes flash floods like we've seen as of recently. But that truck stop that smelled like humanity, like trucking humanity, had to be at least half an inch to an inch of water just going through the parking lot in that storm. And it cleaned it up. I watched trash just floating by towards the edge, out to the fence, as kind of got a slope on the parking lot. And all the smell was gone. And afterwards, amazingly, like a lot of desert storms do, the sky cleared up. Like you got that kind of beautiful sunset. Some clouds, the sun's going down. The last bit of the clouds is just kind of dissipating. And at night, it was a really strangely clean smell because it was warm. It was humid as fuck though. So you're in your truck, you run in your APU, auxiliary power unit, for those that don't know, produces a huge amount of electricity, and it's got an AC unit on it, AC and heat. So, you don't have to live like a friggin' animal. You don't have to idle your truck. You save a lot on your engine by having an APU. Some people like them, some people hate them. You can make your own decision. But yeah, I mean, that smell of the heat, with the mesquite in the distance, like because you got that neighboring kind of cow field, ain't what used to be cow field, oil field, homeless encampment over there. The piss smell has been cleansed and washed away. And it's like, it's amazing just how quickly nature just washes the problems away. And the smell is amazing. Then you hear the nighttime bugs doing that. Of course, at the truck stop, you won't hear that. What you'll mostly hear at the truck stop is trucks idling. I've been in places when the heat was high, and I swear to God, it sounds, if there's enough trucks running, I remember the first few times I heard it, you get used to it, but all the reefer units, all the trucks idling, it sounded like a cacophony, almost like bagpipes. It was a constant hum like a mill. But if you go out, like say, back to that refrigeration place on Prophet Drive, you get on one of those little side streets and you park, it's quiet. I mean, it's ridiculously quiet. You can hear the bugs. There's some birds, night birds and whatnot. And of course, the next day, everything's back to normal. But yeah, I just think it's funny when people say, what do you think of when you think of San Antonio? And this isn't a negative thing. It just was what it was. I think of the light smell of piss in the parking lot and a killer rainstorm just cleansing the whole area. And, that's a real story. That's not like, oh, I'll tell you it's this great and this, that. No, that's real. Anyways, I don't know. Just kind of popped in my head earlier. Another thing is I really miss the iron skillet. That was the main reason I really liked the Petros. They had the buffet. They had a good breakfast buffet. The bacon was okay, but most everything else was pretty good, middle of the road. A few things, some places did better than others. And now, ever since COVID, almost all the buffets have been pulled out. I don't know, people say, well, that's good. I don't know. It's like, when they talk about the good old days of trucking, I was never there for that. I never saw that. The good old days of trucking were pre-99, kind of more of a Wild West of things back when there were paper logs and you didn't have to have DEF on your trucks. Sure, there's still some remnants of what trucking was, but now I'd argue that trucking, it's a lot of long work. It's not hard work. And it's more like being a monk to some degree. You're out there, you're doing the solitude thing, you work. And these days you have all these YouTube truckers. No, I'm not throwing shade on anybody, but yeah, you got a lot of YouTube truckers. And it's a whole different game. When you look at, there's like only a few real truck stops left that I think of. And most of it's all gone corporate. When you run into one of those places in the middle of nowhere, like out there and on the I-10, there's one of them out there going towards West Texas. And then there's the one in Tucson, Triple T. The world's biggest truck stop to me is too commercial. It's like more like a zoo. They got everything you want, but it's a zoo. Every once in a while you find one of those old truck stops. And the parking lots, actually going through the South, you can find some of them if you know where they're at. But the difference is like you go into a lot of those, but the parking lots in the back are shit. You're driving through there, okay, just kind of take this big pothole to get to that spot over there. Mm-hmm. Don't want to fucking tip your freight. Make sure to put your load bars up. Like, just a little prevention work save you a lot of trouble. But yeah, when people have this mental image of like, what is it, Smokey and the Bandit or Convoy. And by the way, I still love hearing the Convoy song. But it's nothing like that. It's, for the most part, it's clean, it's normal, it's just a job. It's just different. It's chaotic and you're in random locations all over the country. But as far as like the old school way of things, that is nearly extinct. And I figure in another 5, 10, maybe 15 years, the whole industry will be automated. That's what the goal's been for ages. It'll be interesting to see what happens when it happens, but I figure you might as well get in the gold mine while you still can. Peace.